Have you ever sensed that not all storms announce their arrival with deafening roars and crashing thunder? Some, perhaps the most perilous, arrive wrapped in the softest silk, offering a gentle smile, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to reveal their true nature. Intro Hook 2. The kind that subtly erodes your peace. Never marches into your life shouting its menacing name. Instead, it often whispers sweet invitations. It masterfully pretends to be a friend, offering an illusion of comfort while meticulously, almost invisibly, laying its intricate traps. Intro Hook 3. This is precisely what, with their profound understanding of the human heart, taught us to beware the one whose words shine far brighter, far more dazzlingly, than their observable actions, for that is often the one who skillfully cloaks the deadliest poison in the most enticing sugar. Could learning to see beyond these masks be one of our most vital life skills? Indeed, in the timeless teachings of Zen and the profound early wisdom of Buddhist thought, the greatest danger was seldom perceived in the glint of swords or the ferocity of wild beasts. Rather, it was keenly recognized in minds that artfully deceived, in hearts that subtly sought to control, and in spirits that masterfully manipulated. The truly wise did not primarily fear physical death. They feared the slow, insidious corruption of their own inner peace, their most precious sanctuary. And this corruption, this subtle dimming of one's inner light, almost never appeared with the drama of thunder and lightning. It often came cunningly disguised as a trusted friend, a devoted lover, a wise guide, or a seemingly selfless helper. In a world where darkness so often wears the most convincing masks of light, one must strive to become like the still, deep lake, clear enough to reflect unambiguous truth, profound enough to sense even the faintest disturbance beneath the surface, and imperturbably undisturbed enough to detect the almost invisible ripple long before it escalates into a destructive wave. This teaching, drawn from such ancient wells of wisdom, endeavors to reveal the 7 subtle yet significant signs of truly toxic people. Viewed through the discerning lens of Zen and Buddhist awareness, it aims to unveil how this subtle form of evil, or profound negativity, breathes, how it artfully attaches itself to us, and most importantly, how it can be sensed, not merely by what we see or hear, but by cultivating inner stillness, accessing innate wisdom, and paying unwavering, mindful attention. Let us begin this exploration with a parable, a story that gently unveils the heart of it all, the garden without a shadow. A monk, it is said, once walked for many long seasons, his journey taking him through blistering sun, blanketing snow, and vast stretches of profound, unbroken silence. His simple robe was weathered by time and travel, and his begging bowl had intimately known the extremes of both famine and feast. But within his chest, the rhythm of his breath remained consistently undisturbed, a testament to his inner cultivation. He had consciously, painstakingly, walked away from the tangled web of attachments, from the heavy burden of others' opinions, and from the distracting noise of both effusive praise and biting blame. He sought only one thing, the soundless, unshakable truth. One quiet evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and rose, he reached a place that seemed utterly untouched by suffering. A veritable oasis of tranquility. A magnificent garden stretched out before him in all directions, blooming with an almost ethereal vibrancy of color and exuding an palpable aura of deep, abiding peace. And in this garden stood a host, a person whose smile seemed to embody perfect calm, whose voice flowed like velvet, and whose very presence appeared to be entirely without edge, without any hint of discord. "You have traveled long and far, Venerable One," the host said, their voice a soothing balm. "Stay here with us. Rest your weary body. I assure you, nothing will trouble you within these serene walls." The monk, feeling a sense of hopeful relief, stepped inside the inviting garden. At first, all indeed seemed utterly perfect. Every flower, as if by an invisible hand, bent its delicate head gracefully toward the life-giving sun. Every gentle breeze that wafted through the garden sang with the most exquisite, intoxicating fragrances. The host spoke with unfailing kindness, served every meal with generous hospitality, and shared insights that sounded remarkably deep and profound. Yet, despite this veneer of perfection, something subtle within the monk began to stir, not loudly, not alarmingly, but as a faint, almost imperceptible pulling, like a single, nearly invisible thread tugging insistently at the seamless fabric of the surrounding silence. The monk, through his long years of practice, knew this truth. When peace feels somehow forced, when serenity seems too perfectly curated, an illusion often breathes just beneath the surface. So, he waited, he watched, and slowly, one by one, the signs began to quietly, yet unmistakably, unfold. 1. Smooth words, sharp intentions. The host, he observed, spoke always in a cascade of compliments, each word meticulously laced with an almost cloying sweetness. But the monk soon noticed that beneath the surface of these honeyed words, each praise subtly pushed an unspoken expectation. Each grand gesture of kindness seemed to silently demand a corresponding measure of gratitude. An unspoken debt. The kindness, he began to realize, was not a freely offered gift. It was, in fact, a skillfully disguised hook. Zen teachings wisely caution us, when the mouth moves too quickly, too glibly, the heart often moves with underlying calculation. A truly, genuinely kind person gives without keeping a mental tally, without any memory of their giving, and they receive with an open heart, without any prior expectation. But the toxic spirit, conversely, often gives primarily to bind, to create a sense of obligation. Their smooth, flowing words are not like nourishing rain that quenches the thirsty soul. They are more akin to cleverly woven nets, designed to ensnare. The wise monk knew to observe not just the pleasing sound of their voice, but more importantly, the subtle tension, the almost imperceptible disquiet it might leave lingering in his own chest. In the garden, after one particularly elaborate meal, the monk offered his sincere thanks to the host. The host smiled, that familiar serene smile, but the monk felt the air around them subtly shift, grow cooler. You always seem to forget." The host then whispered, a hint of something unreadable in their tone. "Just how much exhaustive effort I place into making things utterly perfect for you." That, the monk recognized, was the first sign. Words that sound as smooth and luxurious as silk, but upon closer examination, feel as heavy and constricting as iron chains. 2. Subtle control over your time and choices. Toxicity, in its more insidious forms, rarely commands or dictates openly. It prefers to manipulate, to guide, to gently steer, always under the guise of benevolent concern. In the seemingly idyllic garden, the monk once mentioned, "I believe I will meditate alone this afternoon beneath that lovely old pine tree over there." The host replied instantly, their voice soft and solicitous, "Oh, but dear friend, that particular spot is not truly safe. There are hidden roots, and the ground is uneven. You will be so much better, so much more comfortable, near the gentle sound of the fountain. Please, trust me on this." Every suggestion, it seemed, came packaged as an act of loving care. Every gentle warning was presented as a gesture of profound protection. But over time, as days turned into weeks, the monk began to notice a distinct, undeniable pattern. All paths, however subtly redirected, invariably led precisely where the host wanted him to go. The Buddha himself warned that attachment inevitably brings the desire for control, and the exercise of control, however subtle, ultimately brings suffering. The truly wise one offers guidance without attempting to steer the outcome. The toxic individual, conversely, masterfully disguises their chains of control as an array of thoughtful choices. They watch you carefully from behind a mask of kindness, always, almost imperceptibly, placing themselves between you and your own innate freedom, your own sovereign choices. That, the monk understood, is the second undeniable sign. When your own sense of independence, your ability to choose freely, begins to subtly fade behind the ever-present curtain of their seemingly selfless concern. 3. The abrupt shift from warmth to ice without warning. One sun-dappled morning, the monk found himself captivated by the beautiful song of a bird that seemed to be coming from just beyond the garden wall. Perhaps, he mused aloud, more to himself than to the host, "I will take a walk beyond the garden boundary tomorrow, to see if I can find that lovely songbird." In an instant, the host's customary warm smile vanished, replaced by a chilling froidure. "That would be utterly foolish," they snapped, their voice suddenly sharp, devoid of its usual velvet quality. A palpable coldness wrapped itself around the moment, stark and unsettling. Later that day, just as suddenly, the host returned, their warmth seemingly restored, their demeanor as gentle as ever, pretending that the earlier icy chill had never even happened. Zen masters often advise, observe not the wind only when it is gentle and caressing, but pay keen attention to when it suddenly, inexplicably, reverses its course. True, authentic peace has no such volatile on-off switch. It flows steadily, or it may naturally pause. But it does not abruptly strike with coldness and then, just as quickly, pretend to embrace with warmth. The toxic spirit, you see, cannot long tolerate your independent will, your sovereign desires. Their carefully curated warmth is often entirely dependent on your unquestioning obedience. That, the monk realized, is the third clear sign: affection that mysteriously, chillingly disappears the very moment you dare to speak your own truth or express a desire that deviates from their unspoken agenda. 4. A repertoire of stories where they are always the victim. The original script merged this, but it functions as a distinct sign. Each evening, as the shadows lengthened in the garden, the host would share elaborate tales, stories of past betrayals, of friends who had inexplicably envied them, of teachers who had tragically misunderstood their profound insights, of strangers who had inexplicably wronged them. In every narrative, the host was invariably portrayed as the noble hero, the innocent sufferer, always deeply wounded by the insensitivity or malice of others. Yet, never once in these lengthy recitations did the host express a single word of genuine regret for their own part in any conflict, offer a heartfelt apology, or take any discernible personal responsibility for the recurring patterns of misfortune in their life. The monk listened in his customary silence, his inner awareness keenly sensing the emerging, disturbing pattern. Buddhism teaches that a mind which consistently sees enemies in every corner, which perceives slights and betrayals around every bend, is often casting these dark shadows from within its own unexamined depths. The toxic soul frequently projects its own inner chaos and unresolved pain outward onto the world. It compulsively rewrites every story, every interaction, to meticulously escape the discomfort of its own truth. It often bathes in a kind of perpetual victimhood because it deeply fears the clear, revealing light of honest introspection. That, the monk knew, is the fourth telling sign: a spirit that seems to almost thrive on recounting tales of being wronged, yet consistently, steadfastly, never reflects on its own contributions to the dynamic. 5. They drain your energy without doing anything obviously wrong. Each day spent within the confines of the seemingly peaceful garden left the monk feeling inexplicably weary, not from strenuous physical labor, certainly not from excessive speech, as he was a man of few words, but from an almost tangible, invisible weight emanating from the host's very presence. The host, it was true, never overtly insulted him, never raised their voice in anger, never caused any discernible physical harm. And yet, after each interaction, however pleasant on the surface, the monk felt as if he had walked for many silent miles, carrying a heavy, unseen burden, without a moment's rest. Zen wisdom reminds us, what is not spoken can still profoundly touch the soul. What is not seen can still deeply move the spirit. Energy, unlike words or actions, does not and cannot lie. So-called evil, or profound toxicity, often masterfully hides beneath gestures that are, on the surface, perfectly acceptable, even laudable, but beneath that veneer, it subtly pulls your spirit, your own vital energy, into a state of constant, draining vigilance. Toxicity is not always loud and dramatic. Often, Its most potent form is quietly, relentlessly draining. That, the monk concluded, is the fifth sign. When you consistently feel inexplicably exhausted or depleted around someone, even when there has been no overt conflict or discernible reason for such fatigue. 6. They plant seeds of doubt and call it honesty or concern. The host, in their interactions with the monk, often employed a subtle tactic. "You are truly wise, dear friend," they might say, their voice filled with apparent sincerity. "But sometimes, if I may be perfectly honest, your profound detachment can almost seem like a form of coldness. Perhaps, just perhaps, people find you a little hard to truly connect with as a result." These observations were always delivered in a soft, concerned tone, always framed as well-meaning feedback. But the monk, with his sharpened awareness, began to see the recurring, insidious pattern: a word of praise, quickly followed by a carefully planted seed of doubt, a moment of encouragement, immediately undercut by a subtle, disquieting criticism. Zen masters teach, "He who cuts you with a gentle smile and honeyed words often does more lasting damage than one who strikes you openly in a moment of anger." A toxic person masterfully sows seeds of confusion and self-doubt. They offer you mirrors that subtly distort your own reflection. They skillfully make you question your own intrinsic value, your own perceptions, so that you will then, almost inevitably, return to them for reassurance, for the wise guidance, thus deepening your dependence on them. That, the monk identified, is the sixth sign. When someone's words or actions consistently make you feel smaller, less confident, more unsure of yourself, all while they claim they are only trying to help you or offer constructive feedback. 7. You begin to lose yourself, your own inner compass. One crisp morning, the monk paused by a still pond in the garden and looked at his own reflection. What he saw startled him. His breath, usually so deep and steady, was now shallow and uneven. His posture, once naturally upright and relaxed, felt inexplicably stiff and guarded. His precious inner silence, the fruit of so many years of practice, felt somehow broken, fragmented. He had entered this garden with a profound sense of clarity, a deep connection to his own inner truth. But now, after weeks in the host's pervasive presence, he felt subtly tangled, confused, his own inner compass wavering. In that moment of stark realization, a quiet whisper arose from the depths of his being. This place is not a true garden of peace. It is, rather, a deceptively beautiful mirror of a quiet, insidious poison. He stood up, his resolve clear, and without a word, he turned and left the garden. Both Zen and Buddhist traditions teach a fundamental truth: the ultimate measure of evil, of toxicity, is not found in what it says, or even in what it overtly does, but in what it subtly, almost imperceptibly, makes you become, when you begin to forget your own innate peace, when your core values start to blur, when your authentic joy begins to inexplicably fade. Then you are likely walking in the encroaching shadow of someone else's darkness. That, the monk knew with certainty, is the seventh and perhaps most crucial, sign, when your own spirit starts to inexplicably dim, and you find yourself no longer quite knowing why. When the monk eventually returned to his familiar mountain path, his spirit slowly regaining its former clarity, another wanderer, noticing his contemplative air, asked, "Venerable sir, I heard you stayed in the most perfect garden, a place of unparalleled beauty and peace. Why did you choose to leave such an idyllic haven?" The monk offered a gentle, knowing smile. "Because, my friend," he replied, "the flowers in that garden, though beautiful to the eye, bloomed without any true fragrance. And more troublingly, my own cherished silence began to echo with the sound of someone else's voice." Evil, or deep-seated toxicity, does not always arrive cloaked in dramatic darkness. It does not always raise its voice in anger or aggression. To spot its more subtle manifestations, you must first come to know your own inner peace so deeply, so intimately, that you instantly notice when it begins to fade, when something external attempts to disturb its delicate balance. Pay close attention to how you genuinely feel after a conversation with someone. Watch how your own choices, your own desires, may subtly begin to bend or shift over time in their presence. Observe the delicate, often telling, balance between the warmth they offer and the obedience they subtly, or not so subtly, seem to expect in return. This is how you begin to see through the alluring illusions they may weave. In Zen, evil is not typically viewed as an inherent characteristic of a person, but rather as a misguided movement of energy, an energy that consistently pulls you and others away from truth, away from authenticity, away from inner peace. To protect yourself, you do not necessarily need to build impenetrable walls. What you truly need is a heightened, unwavering awareness. To stay free, you do not need to engage in futile battles with such energies. Instead, you simply, profoundly, return to your breath, to your core values, to your own authentic path. And in that steadfast return, you find your truest strength and your most reliable compass for navigating the complexities of human interaction. A practice that requires ongoing vigilance and self-reflection. So, as we've learned from the monk's quiet departure from that deceptive garden, the most profound act of self-preservation in the face of subtle toxicity isn't to engage in battle, nor to build higher walls of defense. Instead, it is a courageous, steadfast return to your own breath, an anchoring into your core values, and a resolute commitment to walking your own authentic path. And when someone or something consistently dims your precious inner light, the wisest response is often to gently, silently, and fully step away, preserving your peace with discerning wisdom. Let us now delve deeper into these 7 signs, revisiting them not as mere checklist items, but as nuanced movements of energy we can learn to recognize with greater clarity. First, we encountered those smooth words, with their underlying sharp intentions. Remember, in the profound stillness of Zen understanding, the true essence of a person is rarely found solely in the eloquent tapestry of what they say. Rather, it rests, unmistakably, in the subtle yet palpable energy they leave behind in a room. In your heart, after they've spoken, a person with toxic tendencies often masterfully wears the most convincing mask of kindness. Their words can feel like a warm embrace, like genuine praise, but if you pay close attention, their timing, their subtle repetition, and the unspoken expectations that often accompany them can betray their true intent. They might speak just enough honeyed words to become unforgettable in your mind, appear helpful enough to seem almost indispensable to your well-being, and cultivate an aura of sweetness so profound that they become your initial, almost unquestioned, point of trust. But be discerning. This is often not genuine generosity flowing from an open heart. It is, more accurately, a subtle, calculated infiltration. The Eightfold Path in Buddhism highlights right speech as one of its foundational pillars. Such speech must be deeply rooted in compassion, utterly devoid of manipulation or ulterior motives. But the toxic individual often distorts this sacred principle. They speak well, not from a place of authentic connection, but primarily to be seen well. They don't truly give, they subtly, or not so subtly, trade their kindness for your compliance, their praise for your loyalty. Ask yourself, with unflinching honesty, do their words seem to require an unspoken repayment? Does their effusive compliment sometimes feel less like a gift and more like a delicate, invisible leash gently tightening around your neck? Words born from an insecure or manipulative ego are, in essence, weapons. However beautifully disguised, the truly wise speak gently, with sincerity, and then release all attachment to how their words are heard or received. The toxic individual, conversely, often speaks gently specifically to tie you down, to create a web of obligation. The path to true freedom in such dynamics begins when you learn to hear not just the words themselves, but the subtle, often dissonant, music behind the words. Second, we recognized the pattern of subtle control over your time and choices. The ancient teachings remind us that attachment invariably breeds the desire for control. And the exercise of control, in any form, ultimately leads to suffering for all involved. Perhaps the most dangerous trap is not the obvious, barred cage, but the deceptive, alluring comfort offered inside that cage. A toxic soul often masterfully plays the role of the benevolent helper, the wise protector, or the indispensable guide. They rarely issue direct commands like, "You must do this." Instead, their influence is far more insidious. "Oh, darling, it would be so much better for you if you were to do this." They don't overtly forbid your choices, they subtly, persistently discourage them. They don't command your actions, they artfully persuade you, often making you feel as though their suggestion was your own idea. Zen wisdom warns us with stark clarity. Control that cleverly masquerades as love is perhaps the most dangerous, most disorienting illusion of all. True, authentic support does not seek to guide your every step, to dictate your path. Instead, it endeavors to strengthen your own legs, to empower your own inner compass. If you find that someone's advice, however well-intentioned it may seem, consistently, subtly bends your life to orbit entirely around them and their needs, That is not genuine wisdom being offered. That, in a very real sense, is a form of spiritual theft. You might begin to feel an inexplicable guilt for not following the perfect advice. A gnawing confusion when the help paradoxically causes you more discomfort than relief. And a gradual, painful shrinking of your own intuitive voice. These are all crucial signs that your inner compass is being subtly, yet significantly, recalibrated by someone else's map. The Buddhist path calls for unwavering mindfulness. This means consistently remembering who you truly are at your core, and courageously walking your own life, fully awake and aware. If your decisions, your very desires, begin to merely echo another person's will, it is time to stop, to reflect deeply, and to consciously, determinedly return to your own sovereign center. Third, we observed the abrupt and unpredictable shift from warmth to ice without warning. As the Zen masters say, observe not the wind only when it is gentle and caressing, but pay keen attention to when it suddenly, inexplicably, reverses its course. Toxicity often hides behind a facade of selective, conditional love. It doesn't truly accept you in your entirety. It skillfully performs acceptance. As long as you conform to its unspoken rules. But the moment your authentic truth, your independent thought, contradicts their carefully constructed comfort zone, the mask often falls with startling speed, revealing a chilling coldness beneath. Buddhist teachings emphasize the cultivation of equanimity, that profound state of inner balance and composure. One who has diligently trained their heart responds even to discomfort and disagreement with grace, with understanding, with an attempt at connection. But the toxic individual often wields their silence as a potent punishment, their affection as a calculated reward, and their rejection as a powerful tool of control. You may find yourself constantly walking on eggshells around them, never quite knowing what innocent word or action might trigger that sudden, inexplicable shift from warmth to ice. This gut-wrenching unpredictability is not a sign of charming emotional complexity. It is, more often than not, a deliberate or unconscious emotional power play. When you courageously speak your truth and are met with a wall of chilling coldness or dismissive silence, know this: your clarity has likely disturbed their carefully maintained illusion. And in the grand scheme of your own well-being, that is a very good thing. This particular sign teaches a sacred, empowering lesson. Your authentic truth is infinitely more important than their reactive discomfort. If what you thought was love consistently retreats or turns punitive when you dare to speak your soul, then it was likely never true love to begin with. It was, perhaps, a form of dependence, of control, skillfully wrapped in the guise of a loving performance. Fourth, we noted the tendency for stories where they are always the victim. A mind that habitually sees enemies in every corner, that perceives slights and betrayals at every turn, is often, as Buddhist psychology suggests, casting these dark shadows from within its own unexamined depths. Toxic people frequently do not genuinely want healing, for healing requires introspection and responsibility. Instead, they often crave sympathy, an endless supply of pity. without the uncomfortable work of looking within. They compulsively retell their tales of past wounds not as a means to grow or learn, but rather to meticulously build altars of self-pity, around which they hope others will gather in commiseration. In their narratives, almost every person from their past invariably becomes the villain, the one who wronged them. They subtly, or overtly, rewrite their history so that you, in the present, will feel compelled to protect them, to rescue them, to affirm their blamelessness. Zen, with its direct and penetrating insight, might ask, why does one keep returning to the same fire again and again, unless, on some level, they derive a certain strange comfort or identity from being burned? Pay close attention to their stories. Do they ever, even in passing, admit their own faults or shortcomings? Do they ever genuinely ask, what was my role in how that situation unfolded? Do they seem to be perpetually reopening old wounds, picking at the scabs, without ever truly learning or healing from them? This recurring pattern often reveals a profound spiritual immaturity. A truly wise and evolving individual speaks of their past wounds, when necessary, with humility, with gratitude for the lessons learned, not with lingering bitterness and an endless stream of blame. When someone's entire life narrative centers almost exclusively around what others have done to them, it's a strong indication that they have not yet truly stepped onto the liberating path of self-responsibility and inner freedom. Evil, in its most cunning forms, often cloaks itself in the guise of victimhood, because pity can be an incredibly powerful and disarming disguise. Do not allow yourself to fall into its sympathetic trap. Listen, by all means, with compassion, but also listen with unwavering clarity. See the repetitive loop, and then choose peace for yourself, not the endless, draining drama they may offer. Fifth, remember the sign of how they drain your energy without doing anything obviously wrong. The Zen masters knew, what is not seen can still profoundly move the spirit. You don't need overt conflict or loud arguments to feel wounded. You don't need external chaos to experience inner turmoil. Some people, through the very quality of their energetic presence, simply, almost inexplicably, pull at your vital energy without ever lifting a finger, without ever uttering a harsh word. You might find yourself feeling inexplicably tense in their presence, even when the conversation is light and pleasant. You might feel subtly diminished, made to feel small, even when they are ostensibly smiling at you. Please understand, this is not a sign of your weakness. This is often your finely tuned intuition, your inner knowing, screaming quietly, trying desperately to get your attention. Zen teaches that authentic presence is palpable power. Your own inner space, when undisturbed and aligned, naturally feels light, expansive, and peaceful. But when you are consistently around a toxic spirit, your own energy field often starts to unconsciously adjust, tightening, preparing, subtly defending itself against an unseen energetic drain. You may not be able to pinpoint a logical reason for this feeling, but your body, your energetic system, knows. When someone consistently leaves you feeling more tired than nourished after an interaction, more anxious than aware, more clouded and confused than clear and uplifted. Pay very close attention. Your inner peace is sacred. Anything, or anyone, that consistently robs you of it without a clear, discernible, and resolvable reason is often a form of subtle evil, masked in an almost passive, undetectable way. Trust your energy. Trust that gut feeling, even before your logical mind tries to find reasons to stay or to rationalize the discomfort. Sixth, we highlighted how they plant subtle seeds of doubt and call it honesty or concern. He who cuts you with a gentle smile and honeyed words, the Zen saying goes, often does more lasting damage than one who strikes you openly in a moment of anger. This is the insidious art of the gentle dagger. The toxic soul rarely resorts to outright insults. That would be too obvious. Instead, they observe you keenly. They don't make direct accusations. They offer carefully worded suggestions. They never seem to attack you head-on. They simply share the deep concern for your well-being. But each comment, each piece of advice, subtly shapes a quieter, less confident, more malleable version of you. You find yourself
becoming more careful around them, more self-conscious about your words and actions, more uncertain of your own perceptions and abilities. The Buddha taught that right view, seeing things as they truly are, is the very beginning of liberation. The toxic person, conversely, masterfully distorts your view of yourself. They speak as if they deeply care, as if they have your best interests at heart, but their words often carry a hidden, corrosive venom. They might say things like, "Oh, I absolutely love your strength, darling, but don't you think you come across as a little too much sometimes?" Or, "You look beautiful, truly, but perhaps that outfit might inadvertently draw the wrong kind of attention. You know, all, you are so wise, so insightful, but sometimes, people might find you just a tad intimidating." Each sentence, on its surface, sounds thoughtful, even complimentary, but how does it make you feel? Often, it feels subtly diminishing, like a tiny, almost imperceptible pinprick to your self-esteem. Your honest reflection must reveal this pattern. True wisdom, genuine support, always builds you up. It empowers you. Toxicity, in its myriad forms, invariably subtracts from your light, from your confidence. True honesty uplifts and clarifies. Criticism, cunningly cloaked in a disguise of care, often only serves the ego of the speaker, making them feel superior or in control. Choose, consciously and consistently, to be with those who genuinely sharpen your spirit, who celebrate your fire, not those who subtly try to dull it with their polite, insidious poison. And seventh, the most heartbreaking sign, you begin to lose yourself. This, as the monk in our parable discovered, is often the final and most painful indication that you are caught in a toxic dynamic. It rarely happens overnight. It's usually a slow, insidious erosion. You might notice, with a growing sense of unease, that you laugh less freely than you used to. You find yourself hesitating more often before speaking your mind. You begin to chronically question your own instincts, your own gut feelings, which were once so clear. Your inner vision, your sense of direction in life, may become foggy, uncertain. Your very soul can feel subtly, yet painfully, detached from its vibrant source. Zen teaches that the highest, most tragic betrayal is to abandon your own true nature, to lose touch with the essence of who you are when someone's presence, their influence, their subtle manipulations, slowly, systematically, erodes your clarity, your joy, your authentic voice. This, in a very real sense, is a form of evil, perhaps of the highest order, because it insidiously makes you forget the magnificent, unique individual you were before they entered your life. Ask yourself these deeply personal questions. Who was I before I met them? Before this connection deepened, do I still recognize myself when I look into the mirror of my own mind? Does this connection, this relationship, consistently bring me back to my own authentic path? Or does it subtly, persistently, pull me away from it? If your life seems to shrink in someone's presence, if your inner light noticeably dims when they are around, if your cherished dreams begin to wilt and fade under their influence, then it is time to walk away, not necessarily with blame, not with consuming rage, but with a profound, sacred sense of self-protection. Let go, even if you don't receive the closure you think you need. Let go, because sometimes your silence, your dignified departure, is the most powerful answer you can give. Let go, simply because your inner peace matters far more than any lengthy explanation or protracted battle. This, in itself, is the purest act of Zen, to walk away without internal resistance, and to consciously,
lovingly, return to the sacred truth of your own being. This brings us to the shield of stillness, our ultimate protection. Evil, in its subtle forms, cannot thrive, cannot take root, in the luminous presence of unwavering awareness. It needs confusion to operate. It relies on your compliance, your unquestioning acceptance of its narrative. It flourishes in the erosion of your personal boundaries. In Zen, the true sword that cuts through illusion is not made of steel. It is the sharp edge of silent, discerning awareness. The most effective shield is not a defensive wall built of anger or fear. It is the steady, unwavering flame of mindful attention. You do not ultimately need to confront a toxic soul, to engage in the draining dramas, to try and make them see the error of their ways. You simply need to see them clearly, in their totality, and then, with quiet resolve, choose to leave, to disengage. Do not try to change them. That is not your task. Do not wait for them to recognize or acknowledge what they've done. They may never be capable of it. Understand that they often feed off your attention, your emotional reactions. The more you react, the more deeply they can root themselves into your spirit. Instead, when faced with such energy, practice this. Breathe deeply. Acknowledge the reality of the situation without judgment. Gracefully exit the dynamic, and then return, always return, to the sacred inner sanctuary of your own profound stillness. Keep that inner space protected. Guard it diligently with your awareness. Expand it daily with your discipline, with your practice. Because know this profound truth: evil, in any form, simply cannot survive for long in a soul that is truly, vibrantly awake, and that, my friends, is your ultimate liberation. Thank you, from the depths of our hearts, for accompanying us on this vital exploration today. We trust that these insights, drawn from ancient wisdom, have illuminated your understanding and empowered you on your journey. If this message has resonated with you, if you feel a deeper call to cultivate awareness and protect your precious inner peace, we would be profoundly grateful if you would subscribe to our channel. Our mission is to continue sharing transformative content like this, creating a community dedicated to conscious living and authentic well-being. Please take a moment now to click that subscribe button below this video. And be sure to tap the notification bell as well. By doing so, you'll ensure you never miss an update or a new video from us. As we continue to explore paths to greater clarity and inner strength, your engagement means the world to us. So we warmly invite you to share your thoughts, reflections, or any personal experiences related to this topic in the comments section. What signs have you learned to recognize? What practices help you maintain your inner peace? And if there are other topics you'd be interested in exploring with us, please let us know. We value your presence and your voice in this community. Until we meet again, may you walk in wisdom, clarity, and the unshakable strength of your own awake and protected soul. We look forward to connecting with you in our next video.